Welcome to the Empowered Project. It's a beautiful day this afternoon, so I thought that I'd get outside. So, if I'm a little squinty-eyed, it's because it's really bright and I didn't grab any sunglasses. Moving on. Today I want to talk to you guys about a principle that I call the 4-to-1 principle. And it is a game changer if you would implement it daily. The 4-to-1 principle is fairly simple in theory, but it is very complex in actually applying it in our lives. The principle all got its start by me in an effort within myself to create a personal quiet time, which is something that I have struggled with for a very long time. And I'll admit that I stole the initial idea from a podcast I was listening to where the speaker would sit 2 chairs in one room. One chair for himself and the other chair intentionally left empty for God. The man would then ask 3 questions. He would say, number 1, God, do you know what's going on in my life? Which was a rhetorical question because God is God and he always knows what's going on. Number 2, the question number 2, he would say, God, do you know what I should do about what's going on in my life? Another rhetorical question because again, God is God and he always knows what to do. The third and final question, which was the big one, was God, what's the plan? And at the conclusion of asking the 3 questions, the man would sit for 4 minutes in an attempt to still his mind and just listen for God. So 1 minute spent talking to God and 4 minutes spent listening for God. And in my head, that was the start of the 4-to-1 principle for me. As I began to meditate on the daily habits of this very successful guy, I began to see more and more in it. My conclusion was that this principle should be used not just in the spiritual piece, but in most all of our lives. In physical training, we should spend 4 times the amount of time in recovering than we do in actual training. This means everything we do for recovery to take care of our body should take 4 times the priority over the actual workout. What does that look like? Well, your nutrition, your mobility, your flexibility, your sleep, and your actual rest from training, even how much we play should be affected by this principle. 2 hours of training equals 8 hours spent recovering. Within the soul, as we talk about the mind, will, and emotions, we should spend 4 times the amount of time learning, growing, and self-development and listening than we do in actual conversation, in speaking and in instructing others. This means those whose vocation or calling is in leadership roles, teaching roles, and anything where we aspire to speak into others are truly held at a crazy higher standard. Can you imagine how effective we will become if for every hour we spend speaking into others, we pour 4 hours of knowledge, of training, and experience into ourselves? If we truly intend to add value to others, we must first add value to ourselves so that we are valuable and effective. Those who intend to teach must first be a student daily. If we ever get to a point in life where we think we have all the answers, it's the evidence that we do not have the answers. In the realms of the spiritual, we should spend 4 times the amount of time listening in silence, in worship, in meditation, and in reading scripture than we do in making our requests to God. I believe that the more time we spend in listening, in silence, in worship, in meditation, and in the reading of scriptures, that our perspective it begins to get put in the correct place, and therefore will make the prayers that we do place before God much more powerful and effective. At the beginning of this, I said that this principle was simple but complex, and here's what I meant. The 4-to-1 principle is very effective. It is very simple, but it is very complex, and that it requires diligence and discipline to implement it daily. It will require you to be intentional in everything. So here's my challenge to you. Implement the 4-to-1 principle in just one piece of your life over the next 7 days and pay attention to how things change. And then let me know